When Bonnie Woodward's 17-year-old stepdaughter went missing in the summer of 2010, she was determined to find her. Her efforts to protect her stepdaughter would lead to her disappearance. On June 25, 2010, Bonnie Woodward left Eunice Smith Nursing Home. Her boyfriend reported her missing when she did not return home by the next morning. Everyone in Alton, Illinois was shocked to learn the truth about Bonnie's disappearance. Bonnie Louise Gray was born in Wood River, Illinois on June 27, 1962. Bonnie had 2 children, Joseph and Jennifer, whom she raised as a single mother. She became a nurse to support her children, and she worked at Eunice Smith Nursing Home for 27 years. She worked hard as a mother, sister, daughter, aunt, and carer. In 1998, she married John Douglas Woodward. She became a stepmother to her husband's 2 children after marrying him. Those who knew Bonnie describe her as a wonderful and dedicated mother. On July 24, 2000, just 2 years after she married John, he died suddenly and tragically. His death was caused by a cerebral hemorrhage, which means bleeding on the brain. Bonnie took care of the children after their father died. She was now a single mother of 4 children, including Heather, her stepdaughter. Heather was 8 years old when her father died and was raised by Bonnie. Bonnie was described as a responsible and organized parent who believed in teaching her children to be responsible. She expected her children to obey the rules and complete their chores. Heather began to rebel against Bonnie as she grew older. She didn't like Bonnie's rules and preferred to do her own thing. She despised her stepmother and the rules she imposed in her house. Heather left home at the age of 17, seeking freedom. Heather ran away from Bonnie's house on June 10, 2010. She moved in with her teacher. She allegedly told her teacher about her abusive home life, gaining sympathy from the teacher. When police arrived on June 17 to look for Heather, her teacher claimed that she had left her home. She claimed she had no knowledge of Heather's whereabouts and refused to assist with the investigation. Despite the fact that she was facing charges for harboring a runaway, she refused to cooperate. Bonnie was genuinely concerned about her daughter's safety after she went missing. She was desperate to find Heather and protect her. On June 25, 2010, Bonnie worked at Eunice Smith Nursing Home. Co-workers observed Bonnie conversing with a man in a car immediately following her shift. According to reports, the conversation appeared to be friendly, with no signs of suspicious activity. Bonnie left her truck in the nursing home parking lot, driver's side door unlocked and window down, and went with the man. Bonnie's boyfriend assumed Bonnie had gone out for drinks with co-workers after her shift, so he went to bed. Bonnie's boyfriend called police to report her missing after she failed to return home the next morning. She also failed to show up for work, which she had never done in her 27 years at the nursing home. Her co-workers noticed her truck was still parked in the parking lot. After inspecting Bonnie's vehicle, police discovered no evidence of her whereabouts. Police quickly realized that Bonnie, 47, and her teenaged stepdaughter had both gone missing within 3 weeks of each other. They were convinced that this could not be a coincidence. If they could find Heather, they might be able to find Bonnie. However, police had to consider the possibility that Bonnie had left on her own. There is no crime against an adult who voluntarily disappears. Bonnie's family did not think she would leave on her own. She was a dedicated mother who cared for her autistic son. Heather Woodward entered the Alton Public Library on July 3, one day after her 18th birthday, and identified herself as a missing person. Heather was brought in for questioning by police. Heather was 18 years old, but she acted like a child during the interrogation. As police questioned her about her whereabouts over the previous weeks, she was crying and clutching a teddy bear. Heather explained that she moved in with Roger and Monica Carroll on June 17. According to most sources, Heather met Roger and Monica through church. However, according to at least one source, the teacher Heather was staying with was friends with the Carroll family, implying that she arranged for Heather to visit them. According to another source, Heather was dating Carroll's son, Nathan. Heather denied knowing what happened to Bonnie, but speculated that she may have voluntarily vanished in order to get Heather to return home. Bonnie could be mean at times, according to Heather, but her family strongly denies this. Those who knew Bonnie described her as a funny, loving, incredible person with a big heart. Her family claims that if you were hungry, she would feed you and assist you in any way she could. She had a kind heart and a generous spirit. That is a far cry from Heather's portrayal of her stepmother. Heather, on the other hand, was an angsty teen who refused to follow rules. She would not be the first adolescent to exaggerate her home life experience. Fingerprints were discovered on the outside of Bonnie's truck by investigators. This could be a completely unrelated discovery unrelated to her disappearance, but police decided to pursue them anyway. When they discovered Heather had been staying with Roger and Monica Carroll, they summoned them for questioning. Roger was very cooperative, but he denied knowing anything about Bonnie Woodward's disappearance. Monica also provided no useful information, other than the fact that her family was out of town visiting relatives at the time Bonnie went missing. Bonnie remained missing as time passed. There was no bank activity, including her usual payday cashing routine. There was no use of social media, cell phones, or contact with family. Bonnie was a devoted mother who would never leave her children without first checking in. Numerous leads were followed up on, and the Carrolls' property was searched. Despite their best efforts, the investigators were unsuccessful. Days became months, and months became years. Bonnie remained unaccounted for while her family desperately sought answers. Not knowing where your family member is a special kind of torture. One cannot grieve and move on because there is a glimmer of hope, but as time passes, the realization that the missing person will never return becomes clear. Bonnie's family never gave up hope and established a Facebook page dedicated to finding her. In April of 2018, police were notified that Roger Carroll had been arrested following a domestic dispute. However, labeling his actions as a domestic dispute is not entirely fair to his wife Monica. Roger brutally assaulted his wife and locked her in a room in their Jerseyville home. He assaulted her by punching her, pushing her down, and repeatedly using a taser on her. According to Monica, Roger told her that he was a monster. He told me he would kill for me, she continued. He said he used to be able to control his anger, but not anymore. Following Roger's arrest for the brutal assault on his wife, police decided to question his wife and son, Nathan, again. They hoped the two would be more forthcoming about what they knew about Bonnie's disappearance. They did have more information. Nathan, now in his 20s, was no longer the terrified 16-year-old boy who had defended his father. Everything he told the cops was true. Nathan stated that his family did travel to Goreville, Illinois to visit family that weekend. However, after Roger and Heather went for a long walk alone, Roger informed Nathan that the two of them needed to leave early. On the way back to Jerseyville, Roger explained that Bonnie was a bad person who needed to be cared for. Instead of going home, Nathan stated that they drove to the Alton, Illinois nursing home where Bonnie worked. "Good, she's working today," Roger said when he saw her truck. Roger was waiting for Bonnie when she left the building at the end of her shift. He approached her and told her he knew where Heather was. Heather was willing to talk to Bonnie, he said, but Bonnie had to accompany him. Bonnie was eager to speak with Heather and eagerly climbed into Roger's car. She must have been overjoyed and relieved to see her stepdaughter, but it was all a ruse. Nathan claimed that his father left the family's Jerseyville home with a gun. When his father returned home a short time later, he heard gunshots. He claimed to have seen Bonnie's lifeless body lying on the ground, still dressed in her scrubs. At the time, his father demanded that he assist him in the construction of a burn pit in which Bonnie's body would be placed. Nathan testified that his father repeatedly burned Bonnie's remains until there was little left of her. At that point, the boy claimed his father forced him to assist him in carrying Bonnie's remains to a creek, where he threw what was left of her body into the water. Police searched the Jerseyville property once more, this time with Nathan's help. After nearly 8 years, the location where Nathan claimed Bonnie was shot was thoroughly searched. A 9mm projectile and shell casing were discovered in the ground by police. Nathan displayed the gun, one of several discovered in the house, and identified it as the one used to murder Bonnie. Police discovered several bone fragments and a key near the burn pile. Although the key and bone fragments could not be positively identified as Bonnie's, police believed they were her only remains. Nathan stated that his father gave him Bonnie's phone and instructed him to smash it. He admitted to smashing the phone and setting it on fire after following his father's instructions. Bonnie's co-worker positively identified Roger Carroll as the man Bonnie was talking to in the parking lot after work. His fingerprints, as previously mentioned, were also discovered on her truck. Roger Carroll denied ever being in Alton on that day, let alone being in or near Bonnie Woodward's vehicle. That was obviously a lie. Roger Carroll was charged with Bonnie Woodward's murder on April 12, 2018. In exchange for their testimony, Monica and Nathan were both granted immunity. Monica was able to confirm Roger and Nathan's early departure from Goreville, as well as the presence of a massive fire on her property the day she and Heather returned from Goreville. For his attack on Monica, Roger was also charged with unlawful restraint and domestic battery with bodily harm. Monica filed for divorce right away. Roger Carroll's trial began in 2020. The prosecution's witnesses included his estranged wife, son, and Heather Woodward. Monica testified that her soon-to-be ex-husband was abusive and threatened her with homicide. She testified about her attack and Roger's comments about being a monster. Monica's mother testified that Roger and Heather went for an hour-long walk together while visiting her Goreville home. Roger promptly left with Nathan after returning from his alone walk with the girl. The defense criticized Monica Carroll's testimony, claiming she had a motive to lie. Monica and Roger were divorcing, and if Roger was convicted, Monica would inherit nearly $800,000 in assets. The prosecutor objected, and the judge barred the defense from further questioning. Heather Woodward testified that she was living with Bonnie but was dissatisfied with the arrangement. She claimed she was leaving to live with a teacher, but Roger Carroll invited her to stay with him until she turned 18 a few weeks later. Heather agreed to go because she knew him from church. Roger told her not to tell police where she had been, to follow his rules, and not to use her cell phone or computer when she arrived at the Carroll home. She denied any knowledge of Bonnie's death. Nathan Carroll was the main witness against his father. He testified that Bonnie was mean, aggressive, and abusive to Heather, according to his father. Bonnie, he said, needed to go away and never come back, according to his father. He testified that he unsuccessfully tried to talk his father out of it. Nathan stated that his father found out about Bonnie's work schedule by questioning Heather about her routine. He went home and waited for the woman to get off work. He walked away with a loaded gun. Nathan told the police the same story he had previously told them. Bonnie was dead on the ground, he saw. With Nathan's help, his father used a tractor to transport the woman to the burn pit. Nathan shattered her phone and threw it into the fire. After several days of burning her remains, Nathan and his father scooped them up with the tractor and dumped Bonnie in a nearby creek. Nathan initially admitted lying to police, citing the need to protect his father. Nathan claimed that members of his family were threatening him for testifying against his father. Nathan was questioned about his father's background. Had he ever killed an animal? Nathan confirmed that his father had previously killed 2 dogs on their property. When asked why he might have killed them, the defense raised an objection, and the questioning was halted. On cross-examination, the defense questioned Nathan's testimony, claiming that his account of the murder was a convenient recovered memory after his father and mother's marriage fell apart. "I spent 8 years trying not to think about this, trying to go on and be normal and forget it," Nathan responded. "And in the last 2 years, my goal has been to remember everything, and then someone will say something, someone will bring up a topic, and it will just go from there. I remember more and more information, and I can't stop thinking about the details these days. I jot it down. It's difficult in meetings with the prosecutor, and then I have to try to function." So, yes, my memory improves as I remember more and more unravels, but after I tell people and I know it's documented I try and forget it again, and it's hard cause I think about it on a nightly basis. The defense requested a mistrial, claiming that the notes Nathan mentioned were not provided to the defense during the discovery phase of the trial. The prosecutor, however, clarified that the notes were gathered by Nathan's attorney, not the prosecutor. Furthermore, the defense had discovery access to Nathan's journals. The mistrial request was denied. Co-workers testified that Bonnie's truck was left in the nursing home parking lot overnight on June 25, 2010. Roger Carroll, a co-worker said, was the man she saw speaking to Bonnie in the parking lot after her shift. Her family and friends testified that she was a dedicated mother and nurse who would not willingly abandon her entire family and her job of 27 years. Matt Davis, an Illinois State Police forensic anthropologist and human remains expert, also testified about the bone fragments discovered on the Jerseyville property. He testified that 2 of the DNA fragments examined and tested did not belong to Bonnie Woodward. Other fragments were too small and severely burned to extract DNA. According to the expert, these remains were consistent with human remains that had not been completely cremated. While not definitively linked to Bonnie, they could be her remains. A U.S. Department of Agriculture Forest Service research botanist testified that he examined samples from a tree near the burn pile Nathan claimed was used to cremate Bonnie's remains. He analyzed the rings of the tree samples and said the samples clearly experienced a traumatic event during the wood growth season of 2010. The damage to the rings from the year 2010 indicated that there had been a fire that had hampered the tree's growth during the summer months. To explain the evidence against Roger, the defense made numerous claims. According to one such claim, the numerous bone fragments were discovered because the property was an ancient Native American burial ground. They presented an expert who claimed that Native Americans used cremation on occasion. However, the prosecution pointed out that a key and a button discovered were incompatible with this theory. The jury found Roger Carroll guilty of first-degree murder after 3.5 hours of deliberation. Furthermore, the jury found Roger guilty of discharging a firearm resulting in death, which provided grounds for an enhanced sentence. Prior to sentencing, Roger Carroll filed an immediate appeal, citing ineffective assistance of counsel. He claimed that the brief testimony about him killing dogs was prejudicial. His request for a new trial was denied. Roger Carroll was sentenced to 40 years in prison for murder and an additional 25 years for discharging the firearm. He received a total sentence of 65 years in prison. Roger Carroll is scheduled to stand trial in September 2022 on charges related to the attack on his wife. Monica and Roger are no longer married. Heather Woodward, who is now an adult, has remained anonymous since testifying against Roger Carroll. Many people believe Heather was involved in Bonnie's death, either directly or indirectly, but Heather has never been charged with Bonnie's murder. What happened on that hour-long walk alone with Roger Carroll is still unknown. Did she plan to murder her mother with Roger? Did Roger take advantage of a young, inexperienced adolescent? Was Roger genuinely concerned about Heather's safety, or did he have a more sinister motive? We can only guess. Bonnie Woodward was a devoted mother, sister, friend, girlfriend, aunt, and nurse. Every day, her family and friends mourn their tremendous loss. While grateful for the answers, those who loved Bonnie wish they could bury her properly. She left a loving legacy and will be greatly missed. What are your thoughts on the Bonnie Woodward's case? I really appreciate your input. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Be a part of the Chris Crime Diaries family and hit the subscribe button now.